familytalk.com.
Good morning and welcome to Courageous Journeys. Today we have a story of another kind, a personal story of a local woman here with us today, and I'm so proud of her for having the courage to join us. Courageous Journeys is exactly that. We're bringing to you topics that affect all of our lives globally, not only locally but also globally. And what do I mean by that? Topics such as family issues, the arts, mental and physical, spiritual health, how to save resources, money. We build local and global community awareness through providing opportunities for personal and professional growth. It is my desire to encourage, educate, empower, and inspire you. This morning, as I mentioned, we have Laura Hagamonian with us, and we're going to be welcoming her in a minute. And it takes a special kind of person to continue to be positive and courageous no matter what they're going through, and also share their own story with you to help others possibly catch the symptoms of a disease before it gets out of hand. So Laura is currently welcome, Laura.
Hi.
Laura is currently an educator at Fresno Pacific University, right?
Yeah, I'm just adjunct faculty.
Adjunct faculty, sorry.
Yeah.
And you're a local here from Fresno, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And Laura's story came to me. We were at a gathering of friends, and I was sharing with others what it is that I'm trying to do with Courageous Journeys, and I expressed that this isn't something that I ever wanted to do, but I feel that it is what I'm meant to do. So here we are today, and Laura said, well, I might want to share my story. So I'm like, really? Are you sure about that? Let's talk about it in private first. But I'm really proud of you today. So we're going to kind of backtrack and talk about, initially let's start way before the cancer, and kind of what you were doing with your life and what plans you had.
Like in college, maybe?
Yeah.
Well, I studied really hard in high school, and then they put me at UC Davis. So I thought that was super cool because I was pre-med at the time, which I changed my mind on later.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah. And I had a lot of pressure in my head when I was like sleeping on my stomach, and I just thought, well, I'm just getting a little bit older and that's normal. And then I told my parents, something's not quite right. I don't feel very smart anymore. And they were like, no, it's just college and you'll get used to it. And I thought, well, I'll just do what I can and see what happens. And then I studied abroad in France, and I went on to get my graduate degree, and I thought, man, it's super cool that I did not go to med school because I can't remember what the teacher just said.
No. That's
so I was like,
cool.
how can I learn Greek and Latin words that they're using, and I can't even remember what they just said in English. So I did that, and then I interned at the United Nations in Austria for 6 months.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. So, and then I came home, and I had a lot of symptoms. Like, when I was sleeping on one side, I would have a headache, and I would turn over and not have a headache within 2 seconds of each other. And just a lot of things were off.
Well, when we had a chance to meet, a week ago or so and talk and get to know each other, I was really proud of you. I want you to share your story about how you got in to be able to working in the United Nations, and well, because that's something to be proud of. A lot of times people are waiting for opportunities, or they expect someone else to help them do something.
Yeah, when I went to France, first of all, everyone said, don't apply, don't go to France, you won't get in, it'll be weird because French people don't like Americans. They told me all kinds of things. And
Negative.
I got in, and people, well, there were some rude people, but there were nice people as well. And then when I applied to do the United Nations, my school was supposed to apply for me and send a letter. And they sent a letter to one department, which was not the department that I ended up in. It was kind of the wrong department. It was the right department because I wanted that one, but it was the wrong department because that's not what I ended up getting. So I applied on my own, and I got in without their letter at all. They didn't have any difference in my getting in. So I basically applied by myself and got in by myself. So
And what were you doing while you were there?
I actually worked in the criminal, what section was I in? I was in 2 different sections. One was on Southeast Asia, and the other one was in criminal justice.
And were you enjoying that?
Yeah, I did a lot of program management stuff, like technical cooperation assistance, program management. Like, I wrote a lot of internal documents.
And all of that requires a lot of the skills to start getting affected when you have a brain tumor. Right?
Yeah, and my brain tumor was pretty big because that was in 2007 for 6 months, and my tumor would have been pretty good size because I only waited maybe 4 years post that till they found the tumor, and it was almost the size of an egg or a golf ball.
When they found it.
Yeah, so, and it was growing at only, the highest percent growth rate they found was 4%.
Which is low,
So that's
right?
really slow. So by the time I was at the United Nations, the tumor was pretty large to be that big.
And then, so your term at the United Nations was for a specific amount of time, or did you decide to just make a change? What happened with that?
It was meant to be for 6 months. Like, we all went for an entire semester, so most people only intern there for 3 weeks or 3 months, and then mine actually was 6 months, which was longer than most of the other interns. So
Nice. So that was a nice experience.
Yeah.
So then when you got back here to the U.S., you came back to the U.S.,
Yeah,
right?
I had to finish my master's program with a couple weeks of class.
Oh,
So-
boy. And you
I-
finished at Davis? Or where did
No,
you
I
finish
finished
your
it
master's?
in Monterey. I
Okay.
had a school there that I went to, and when I was doing my internship, I had homework assignments as well, and then I came back for 2 weeks, and I had a paper due at the end. So, yeah,
That's enough for anybody. I know how challenging
it
it
was
is.
super stressful because you're at the United Nations, so there's an extra stress level there, and I went to an international conference that they did, and that's extra stress because the countries send in a diplomatic team to go to those meetings, and I had to lead my team around, and
Oh, boy.
that was super, yeah.
And
I
so
mean,
you're
it's stressful.
responsible for others, not just
Oh,
yourself.
yeah, and in the beginning, like, they were from, a smaller country in that area, and so I had to, like, walk like an Asian person. I mean, I don't know if you want to
So
say
was it-
Asian, but
So
I
you
had
were
to-
in Asia for that
no,
conference? Where
no,
were you?
it was in Vienna, but if you have someone from that country, you definitely want to use their techniques. So I had to walk like with smaller steps and like
Right.
be very calm, and they don't like
Blend
the people
into
that
the
I was
environment.
with didn't like to smile at you, so they weren't like smiling, but that's normal for them to not smile. So they didn't say anything except they were talking about who could speak foreign languages, and they said it's too bad most Americans don't speak a foreign language, and they were like, what about you, do you speak a foreign language? And I was like, yes, I speak French. And they spoke French because the French people had been in that country and moved around, and they started smiling at me like it was nobody's business.
That was the icebreaker.
That was the icebreaker.
Yeah. Now you're a little bit more intelligent. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll smile at you. You're not a stupid American girl. That's kind of sad, but
A lot of people told me because my hair was so long, they didn't think I was the right person.
Oh gosh.
Because American women have short hair. All of us have short hair.
Well, I think it's not that American women have short hair, but unfortunately, society makes so many of us women feel that if we're in a position of power, then we have to have this powerful look.
Yeah.
I've been challenged with that my 20 years in the landscape industry because I'm working with pretty much all men.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you look too pretty, then, wives get jealous. So it's all this psychological stuff
I
that
know.
you have to deal with, which is not fun. So they said, oh, that can't be her. She's
That's
got too
not
long
her.
a hair. She looks too young.
Yeah. Who is that? And my boss said, not to be rude, I didn't think it was you because your hair is long and you didn't look like an American. They expect you to not be dressed well and not like have long hair, and I don't know.
So
I don't know what they expect. I was being professional.
Right.
And when you're being professional,
Yeah,
that's
you're dressed right. You
Yeah.
look good.
yeah.
So then you were having symptoms during that period as well,
Yeah.
and then you came back to the.
I came back and they just got worse. Like over the next 4 years, I mean, I started looking for work, and like 6 months after I graduated, the economy crashed. So
Yeah, you said 2007.
yeah.
Yeah.
And most people think that if you want to have a job, you should have one already. Well, I I'm adjunct faculty, so
Right.
that was my first job, and that's bumped me up to having my resume looked at more. But
Yes.
so, I had a lot of symptoms increasing. So I was having headaches, which I never have, even when the tumor was super large. Like, I was
What's
not
scary,
having
and
headaches.
in segment 2, we're going to actually do a bullet point the symptoms for you. But what's scary for someone like me who's had migraines my whole life, and
Yeah.
and now issues with numbness and all sorts of weird
Mhm.
things. I'm reading this and I'm going, oh my gosh, what if I have a brain tumor? And so to try and determine for a lot of people who have some symptoms that they've had for a long time, I think may be even more challenging than someone like you. But you said that even the doctors weren't listening to you about your symptoms, right? So
Well, they just didn't think that
got it.
it was pertinent. I mean, I just think it was hard for them to see what was going on because it was slow symptoms and over such a long time period. Because the first time they diagnosed me, it was grade 2. So now, like with the second diagnosis, it's grade 4.
Right, but that's after a surgery. So,
Yeah, but what happened was I got sick in the beginning and I started having seizures in my jaw.
oh, see, you didn't tell me that. Okay.
Yeah.
So
So that's when I went to the doctor and I said, I'm feeling this weird tingling and numbness and my tongue is messed up after. And the doctor said, well, that's a seizure. And I said, oh, well, and then he thought, well, you can get an MRI. It's probably multiple sclerosis because the disease that you had can leave that behind. And I was like, what? You're supposed to just get rid of it. Nothing sticks around.
do
And
you have multiple sclerosis?
no, I don't.
Okay.
But I said, well, what about a brain tumor? And he said, no, I don't think that it's a brain tumor because you said you felt it in the left side of your jaw. And
And it should be on the
usually,
other side?
and I was feeling it over here mostly,
On the
but
right.
every once in a while it would go to the left side. And so he said, and that's unusual because you usually only feel it on one side of your body. So I said, okay. So I went to the East Coast looking for work. And I saw a neurologist out there, and she told me you're having panic attacks.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, that's not the case. And she's like, well, I'll give you an MRI if you want. And I thought, you know what, I'll just wait because I'm going to go back home anyway, and I'll talk to my real doctor who really knows what's going on, and he'll get me the
Right,
MRI.
you didn't feel secure with her attitude towards...
I didn't feel secure, and I thought, I'm not going to waste my time with someone like that because you have an idea. If you think something's wrong, at that point you're going to go, well, what's been going on and how can that affect my attitude? So,
well, and then when you're having several symptoms that are, maybe similar to this, but maybe something else like MS or I was told possibly carpal, it's you're freaking out. I mean,
Yeah.
You don't know what to think, and then when your doctors are just telling you stress or whatnot,
oh,
they wash it away.
That was
So
the worst thing she could have said.
we are going to break for a minute for commercial,
Okay.
and then we'll be back and we'll talk about your personal experience with symptoms a little more, and then some of
Okay.
the others that you may or not have experienced. But thank you for tuning in to Courageous Journeys. We appreciate your time. So as far as like...
This segment is brought to you by Corrine Hatfield of Platinum Mortgage. If you are thinking of purchasing a new home or refinancing an existing home, call Corrine Hatfield at 917-7111.
This just in. Tower District houses are selling for as little as $300 per month. If you have a job and decent credit, you can own your own home. If you can come up with a down payment, you can own a home a lot cheaper than you can rent, and your payment will never go up. Also, you could deduct most of your house payment from your income taxes. If you'd like to lock in your monthly house payment at $300 to $500 per month for the next 30 years, call Mike Briggs Properties, 486-6758. Mike Briggs Properties, 486-6758.
Hey, my name is Chris DeVold, and I am host of one of CentralValleyTalk.com's hottest new shows, Sex, Drugs, and Chris DeVold, where we sit around for an hour and read the Bible. No, we don't. You think with a name like Sex, Drugs, and Chris DeVold, that's what we're doing? No. We sit around, we talk about lewd topics, we drink beer, and I vow to bring you one local live musician every friggin' week. You can count on that. So grab your best friend, come to the studio or watch from home, and get ready to blush every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. on Sex, Drugs, and Chris DeVold.
You can advertise your business, your product, or your event on Central Valley Talk the Valley's only internet television station. Several of our programs are also picked up on Dish and cable networks. For the best advertising dollar, call Central Valley Talk at 579-1360.
You're watching CentralValleyTalk.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Hi, and welcome back to Courageous Journeys. I have here with me today Laura Hagopian, and we're talking about the symptoms of brain tumors and living and fighting cancer. I'm very pleased to have her today with us. We were just discussing some of the symptoms that you experienced over the long period of time, and how those came about and how you went through getting diagnosed. So we were just at your first experience with the doctor on the East Coast.
Yeah, and then I came back home and the doctor out here was like, okay, I'll give you the MRI, because he said wait 10 days, and if it's still there, I'll give you.
What's still there?
If the seizures are still there, I'll give you an MRI slip. And I waited 4 months because I thought, well, I don't know what's going on. So,
well, fear factor too, huh?
Yeah.
There's like, you want to know, but you don't want to know.
I want to know, but I need a job, so I can't do this like forever. So he got me an MRI, and I asked the woman, like, when am I going to find out, and this and that. And well, let me say, before I tell you about the MRI, like, I had a lot of language problems. Like, I couldn't remember words that I've known since I was a little kid, and I couldn't use my chopsticks. I couldn't sign my name properly, and I thought, well, let me sign it really slow and see if the extra loop's still in there. And I did, and it was there, and I couldn't stop the extra loop from being in my name. And I thought, well, this is definitely a mental problem, because I don't have any pain in my arm. It's not numb, nothing's going on with my muscles, so it's got to be a mental problem. And when I told my friends, well, I can't use my chopsticks and I can't remember words, they're like, oh, you haven't been in college for a few years, so you're fine. And I thought, no, I'm not. I used to play with English a lot as a kid.
You really enjoyed language.
Oh, yeah. And in high school, I would make up all kinds of things just in English, and people would laugh, and I couldn't do that anymore.
Right. Your wit. You were very witty. And
I was no longer witty. Yeah. And so I went in for the MRI, and I asked her, well, when am I going to find out? Because it was a Saturday. And she said, oh, you'll probably find out Monday. And so you can see them when you're in the MRI. They put like a little mirror in there, so I could see her. And towards the end, I could see 3 people looking at my scan, and I was like, something's not correct. So she said, well, the doctor wants to see you. And I was like, great, I've got something, because they don't want to see you unless something's wrong.
But then they make you wait, and that's that even if it's only for a few minutes. Like, they had found something in one of my breasts, and I was terrified. I'm in the room alone, no family, nobody there to, and you're thinking the worst.
Well, I was by myself as well.
Yeah.
I went into the back room with him, and there were pictures of someone's head with a huge tumor in it. And I was like, the first thing I said to him was, is that my head? And he was like, yeah. So you can't drive home.
Really? Is that what he said?
Oh, yeah. He told me to call my parents. He's like, have you ever had a seizure? And I said, well, I think I've been having some numbness in my jaw, but that just started recently. And he was like, and you never woke up on the floor? And I was like, no. And he was like in shock that I had never had a seizure or woken up on the floor.
Blacked out or anything.
Well, when I saw the surgeon, he said, it's because it's been in there for 10 plus years. And he said, I want to say it's older than 10 years. So I was 27 at the time. So that would have made me 17 and before. So, I mean, I don't know if it was there before that. And he said, I'm not going to say before 10 years because I don't have a scan. So he was just, the radiologist was in shock. I mean, he couldn't believe that.
You've been living with that, doing what you've been doing for so long, and
and he's like, well, what have you been doing? And I'm like, well, I'm looking for work, and he's like, don't drive anywhere. And I was like, geez, I just drove back from the East Coast.
Good thing I don't killed somebody, huh?
Yeah.
Well, and that's one of the things that he was worried about, because as I was reading, they mentioned when you're driving, vision, right? Being able to connect what you see to recognizing it with your brain. The cognitive
that was
delay.
A huge thing I had. Like, the woman who analyzed my brain said that my visual perception was off. So I would see it and I wouldn't recognize what I had seen until a few seconds.
Right, and in driving, a few seconds can be critical.
I had an accident, and I thought, well, I guess I'm just stupid because I hit a parked car. So, and then later I thought, well, that's why, because I couldn't process what I was seeing.
Right.
So I hit the car because in this eye I couldn't see.
Well, and see, migraines will do that too. They
Yeah.
block off. So let's go through these, and then you tell me and the viewers which ones you experienced. You've mentioned some of them, like the seizures and whatnot.
I've had delayed reactions, definitely. I don't know if tasks were performed timely, but I would say yeah, because when I was at the United Nations, I was right on. However, it might have gotten
Took
a little
longer,
bit
right?
slower.
Yeah.
But I was pretty fast.
Yeah.
I mean, my
Well, you
boss
started
said,
out
like,
so smart.
yeah,
Not like
yeah.
some of us that are a little slow to begin with, right? We don't have as many tools in the toolbox.
Yeah, let's see, greater effort. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I needed greater effort to
And so,
perform my
were you
task.
doing multiple tasks simultaneously?
You know, at
Was
the
that
United
challenging?
Nations, I was, but post that, I was a little bit slower.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how or why, but I could only think about one thing at a time. And that's a huge
Yeah.
difference between
Yeah.
what I did at the United Nations and then later, and that's pre-surgery. So, let's see, switching between,
Activities, yeah.
I had delayed reactions with my vision and my language. I couldn't remember things, I couldn't see things, but I had no idea that I couldn't see.
Right.
And I told my dad, I couldn't hear either. I told my dad at some point, I think something's wrong with my vision. And he's like, well, look at that corner over there. Is it straight or is it blurry? And I said, it's straight. And he goes, well, unless it's blurry, your vision's probably fine. But it was delayed.
Right.
So I could tell that something was off and I couldn't tell what it was. And then my ear, I couldn't hear. So I went to the ear doctor. And he's like, I thought I had blown my eardrum out when I played the piccolo in high school. I played a super high note, and I thought I must have damaged my ear. So I went to him. He's like, you have perfect eardrums. He said, I have never seen anyone with eardrums like yours, and you could hear a pin drop. So,
But
which
you couldn't.
I couldn't.
Right.
And he couldn't. He thought, like, you're in good condition.
So it's pressing on that part of the brain, inhibiting.
You should have seen the
connectivity.
way that it pushed. I mean, you wouldn't believe my brain.
Yeah, an egg is huge. You have
Yeah.
a little head. I mean,
It
that's-
was pushing it out of the way. I mean, it was weird.
So, and then as far as language skills, reading and processing information, retaining
Reading I
that
could
information.
do, processing I could do. I just couldn't remember words. So, like, if you were talking to me, I could understand everything. But if I wanted to say something back, I couldn't. Like,
Right. You
certain
can
words
access
were
that
missing.
vocabulary.
Yeah. Which I would just find other words to use because I speak French. So
Right.
if you don't know the word, find another word.
Yeah. Yeah, but the not being able to access vocabulary, for some reason, the last couple of years I've been
Yeah.
having that, and I thought it's just overexhaustion, overworking, and I'm hoping that's what it is.
Well, a lot of people, like, when you hit a certain age, you're gonna lose
Oh,
it
great.
anyway.
It's the age now. People, I'm
Well,
about to be over the hill.
I'm not going to say that that's what's happening to you,
No.
but in some cases, don't be worried about losing it. But if
Yeah.
you're 29 and you're
Yeah,
losing
you're
it,
29 and I'm 45. There's a big difference there.
yeah, and you would have noticed it
Yeah.
a lot more severely.
Yeah.
You would just know there's something wrong.
Well, and then they were also saying when looking at the actual symptoms as far as related to language is organizing that information in a way that you can
Yeah.
access it in order, instead of it being
I
kind of
still was
jumbled.
able to do that. Like
Yeah.
my friend has a learning disorder where they can't organize things very well. I don't have that, and I was still able to organize things in the order they went. But it was affecting my language area, my math skills, music was affected.
Because you played music.
I've played music since I was a kid, and I've sang since I was a kid, and so they say if you've been doing music since you were a child, you have part of your corpus callosum, which is normally dealing with other things,
Mhm.
is dealing with music. So it had gotten so big that
It
it
was
hit the
affecting that
corpus
too.
callosum, and I noticed I was singing out of tune. And I was like, what? Nobody, like, I would never sing out of tune. Never.
I'm sorry to laugh, but I know
I mean,
you're like,
some-
wait a minute, is that my voice?
Is that my ear? I don't know what's going on. And I thought, no, come on, you can sing in tune. But I couldn't do that.
Couldn't hit that note.
Nope. So
Wow.
let's see if there's others.
I think we covered a lot of them.
Yeah.
What about, like, they're talking about we spoke
Some
on
of
visual.
these are post surgery, and I'll tell you about that too.
Yeah, and they were on the post surgery or post treatment effects. A lot of it's delayed, and so we can go
Yeah.
into that afterwards. But is there anything else that stands out to you that well, the seizures, but you were trying to.
Well, I wasn't sure because if it's multiple sclerosis, you're going to continue to have them, and unless you have the right type of medication, which there's not a lot of doctors that offer.
So
and you
did
have
they
to pay a
do
lot
testing?
for.
They didn't end up doing testing for MS because they did the brain.
They do an
scan.
MRI, and if they see spots in your brain, it will show you have MS. If they see the spots, sometimes you'll go in for an MRI and you have MS, and they can't find anything.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah.
And I wasn't aware that they diagnosed it in the same way through the.
They do through an MRI. And if you have it bad enough, you'll probably have some spots in your brain, like all over. It'll just show.
All over the brain mass. There is we're gonna sign out in a minute for commercial, but there is a informational website which do we have that by any chance at hand we can put up for the viewers? And also there's a lot of great YouTube presentations that are done by an institution that focuses mainly on brain tumors that were really well done. But they're just there's a lot of information out there. So, but these particular symptoms, I really want you to discuss those with our viewers because, like I said, a lot of times they're misunderstood for other things.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate your time being here. I'm having a good time with you as before. So we'll go ahead and, is that up? Oh, yes, it is. Okay, so braintumor.org. There's also support information for families and individuals suffering on there. Have you been to that website before? You probably know
most of the websites. Yeah.
Is there one that you would say that they should go to?
The National Association for Brain Tumors.
National
I don't know
Association?
if that's exactly what it's called. That one is really good.
Very informative.
And well, it depends on where you're from, but UCSF is number 1 on the West Coast for neurology.
Oh, yeah, that's
so
right,
I
you
would
were
look
telling
at their site as well.
Okay, great. Well, we'll be right back. Thanks for tuning in to Courageous Journeys.
Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Sit back and let the evening go. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely, Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It's wonderful to be here. It's certainly a thrill. It's such a lovely audience. We'd like to take you home with us. We'd like to take you home. I'd really start the show. I thought you'd like to know. So singer's gonna sing a song. I want you wanna sing along. So let me introduce to you the one little baby she is. Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Billy cheers. What do you think if I sang get it too? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your bills and I'll sing you a song. And I'll try not to sing out of key. Ooh, goodbye, little help from my friend. Yeah, I'm gonna try a little help from my friend. Do you need anybody? I just need somebody to love. Could it be anybody? I just want somebody to love. What would you believe if I sang out of the good set. I'm certain that happens all the time. Ooh, goodbye, little help from my friends. Yeah, I'm gonna try a little help from my friends. Ooh, I'm gonna try a little help from my friends. I'm gonna try a little help from my friends.
Hello and welcome back to Courageous Journeys. Here with me today is Laura. And we're talking about her stage 4 brain tumor, which started out as a stage 2 brain tumor. Okay, so let's see, where were we? We were giving
So we were
resources.
giving symptoms, and
Yeah.
you know, after they found the brain tumor in the MRI, I called my parents and they were like, "What's wrong with you?" That's like,
yeah.
"I'll tell you when you get here."
She told them to
I
come and get
didn't-
you?
Yeah, and you know, actually, it was a perfectly round ball, which makes a big difference with a brain tumor, because if it's spread out, that means it's more aggressive, and mine was just a ball. So that makes a huge difference when I go to stage 4, because I'll tell you when I get there. But post the MRI, I was having worse symptoms as well. I had like a little thing of light in my left eye, and just headaches all the time. And they gave me steroids to get rid of the seizures, which was wrong.
Okay.
They should give you anti-seizure medicine. And so they called my physician's office, and he wasn't there, but another doctor was there, and she called me apologizing and saying, did I need antidepressants? And I was like, I just found out, so
Yeah.
I don't really need anything.
It'll soak in eventually, right?
Yeah, but you know what? I was happy that they found it. And
Yeah.
I wanted to be a neurologist. So to be frank, I was super excited that I had a brain tumor, because that's
Well,
kinda
you know,
cool.
this is what I found really kind of humorous when we first talked, is that she was saying that before she was wanting to study medicine, that she thought that she was going to have, right? That you thought you were going to have a brain tumor. You just had this weird feeling that
I knew that I had it in high school, and I said, well, what type of surgery would you want to have if you had to have the worst surgery possible? And I said, you know, I think I'd go with a brain tumor, like, over heart surgery, because you get to wake up in the middle of surgery and talk to the doctor.
which I would not want to do.
That's super cool. But it wasn't that cool when I actually did it. I was tired.
Yeah.
But I said, I'm going to have a brain tumor, or I want to be like a neurosurgeon or something. And my roommate will tell you that that's what I want to do.
So strange that intuitively, somewhere in your subconscious,
something said
that was going to affect your life in some way.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
You know, and a lot of us have those things occur with us, and at the time that it's happening, people are like, yeah, whatever, or we even tell ourselves, you know, why are you thinking such thoughts? And then later it comes to fruition.
Well,
it's very strange.
The problem is that, you know, I had a lot of symptoms over the years, and everyone was like, no, you're fine, and I thought, well, I guess I'm fine. And, you know, if you don't have a reason to tell the doctor why you want an MRI, then
they're not going to do it.
They're not going to do it. So when I just had language problems and problems with my chopsticks, I thought, they're not going to send me for an MRI.
Which they probably would have.
Well, I don't know. It depends on the doctor you get. See, you need to get second opinions on everything. And whether or not the first opinion is the right one, you need to have a second opinion.
Second or third, depending.
Yeah, just to make sure that everything's going the right way. Then you need to, like, decide on the activities and figure out what you're going to do. And then don't second guess yourself.
Yeah, well, and listening to yourself. So when you called your parents, okay, so they're freaking out the whole drive coming over.
So I told them when they got there that I had a brain tumor, and they were not happy. I said, I have a disc, I can show it to you when we get home. And they were like, that's huge. It was just huge. So,
and how long between the diagnosis to starting some treatment? So they gave
well,
you some medicine.
I went and saw a neurosurgeon in Fresno who told me things he shouldn't have said. And the first thing he did was recommend me to San Francisco. So I was immediately sent to UCLA, and the #1 doctor there, who was, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention their name.
It's okay. You were immediately sent to UCLA or San Francisco?
San Francisco.
Okay.
Did I say UCLA?
Yeah, it's okay.
UCSF.
Hey, if it's me, then
it's
I'm
UCSF,
just a ditz. If it's you, you have a reason.
It's UCSF that has the #1 doctor. But UCLA is pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to talk about neuro stuff, UCLA is also very good.
So they sent you to San Francisco.
So they sent me, and I saw the doctor, and he was super polite. very like sociable. Just he said, you know, it's not an emergency. This has been there for 10 plus years. I'm not going to say plus because he didn't have the scan. And he said, well, like, I mean, I went through language tests and
Oh, they
math
did
tests.
more testing
Yeah.
with you.
Well, then he wanted to do surgery for it, and he said, I have emergency patients. Let me do those first, and then we'll get to you. And so during that time, like right before the surgery, I had a load of tests. Like one of the med students called me and said, can we do this test on you? It's for med students. So I gave my brain tumor to med students. I did their little scans. And then outside of that, you have to do a language and a math thing so they know what you're used to saying. And they'll give you those during surgery when you wake up. So you can say them, and he can see while he's pushing around in your brain if there's an upset. And you can't feel your brain.
Right.
And so,
So they do like a pre-testing
yeah.
so that they can pull that same information that was easy to access prior to the surgery. During surgery,
yeah.
then that's what you meant when you said that you wake up and they talk to you.
Oh,
during-
yeah. I mean, and I had to have my brain analyzed, and then you have to have, you do an MRI scan, and then they want to, like, a couple MRI scans. I don't remember what the second one was called, but they want to line you up with the machine, and they put things on your forehead. And so I waited to take a shower because I was going to take one the day before, and then they put those things on my head, and I said, well, can I? And they were like, you can't take these off. So you have to keep them on so the next day they can line you up with the machine and the scan. So when they're doing your surgery, they've got all that information right there.
Prior.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they caught that because you said that pretty fast. So they prepped you the day
They
prior.
prepped me the day prior.
And then they said, no shower for you, Missy. You're ready for surgery.
Yeah.
Did you go home, though?
No, I
Oh,
stayed
stayed
in
there.
the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, no, not the day before.
Okay.
The day before I went home.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so you had these things stuck on your
Yeah,
head. So
stuck
did
on
you
my
have
head.
to see anybody that you know with those on?
No, not really.
That's good.
But I took pictures. I have pictures of everything.
See what
You
I
wanna
mean?
see
She's
it?
got a
I've
great
got
sense
it.
of humor. Because I'd be like, oh no, I don't want to.
Yeah, so then I went through surgery, which was 6 to 8 hours. It was probably like 7 or 7.5, I don't know. But they woke me up in the middle, and they said, can you say these words? And I did it in French and English because I wasn't sure where my French was because I had started it in high school. So I thought, well, maybe it's in the same area.
both, yeah.
But it wasn't, so. And then, can you say these numbers? And I did all of that, and he was like, at some point, he pushed my brain and my jaw moved
Oh, weird, huh?
a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and he's
Like the knee reflex or something.
yeah, and he was like, well, what's the matter? And I said, well, I think you moved my jaw. And he's like, did I actually move it or did it just feel like it moved? And I was like, well,
How do I know?
I don't know. And I said, I think it actually moved. And he asked the nurses and they were like, yeah, it moved. So whatever he touched, he's not going to take the tumor out because that's a dangerous spot. Now, if he takes the tumor out of that spot and my jaw can't stop doing that, well, what am I supposed to do?
Okay, so now
So-
you didn't bring that up when we were talking. So is
Yeah.
that how some got left in your
Some-
brain after
Yeah,
surgery?
well, there's two things. The tumor was on an artery, which they can't take the artery out because that artery actually feeds the blood vessels at the back of my brain, which means that it's stuck. You can't take it out. If it was just a blood vessel, he could take it out, but it's on an artery, which is pretty large on this side, and yeah, that wouldn't have worked.
So during surgery, they removed most of the mass.
So they removed the whole thing except what was
Little
on the
portion
artery.
on the artery.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like a little S shape when I was done. So there was some on the artery, and I don't know if there
Kinda
was a little
wrapped.
bit like at the very bottom that wasn't on the artery, but yeah.
And then, so post-surgery, what kind of symptoms or issues were you having?
So post surgery, they did a second brain analysis, and she was like, "Your vision is extremely better." Like I was processing what I was
Awesome.
seeing, but I had a lot of delayed reactions.
Still.
My English was really bad. Like post surgery, I was speaking gibberish. I mean, just you could not understand me, and I knew what I was saying, and I was like, "Why can't they just listen to what I'm saying and try to hear what it is?" And they
Right.
couldn't, and I
how
was using
frustrating.
I was using British English words. Like I used 3.
But they didn't come out right. They weren't hearing them right. In your mind, they were
well,
right?
there were some that were correct and some weren't. Like I was a little angry in the hospital because something had angered me, and I was just talking in gibberish, and then the doctor came in and these people were there asking me questions, and then they left and my English was perfect. So I'm telling you, when you get angry, things flow and get messed
You
up.
get the adrenaline pumping.
It's right. And when you're not having a brain tumor, you can still make language mistakes when you're angry. So when you're angry and you had a tumor removed,
Like I call the kids every name.
Yeah.
You know who you are. Just get over here.
Yeah.
Okay, so so you were having more issues with the language, and what was there anything else that you noticed after the surgery?
Yeah, let's see on here, because, you know, retaining information and short-term memory, a lot of that was messed up, like just slowly, like I couldn't do it as quickly as before.
So what did they say to you about this? I mean, when you went back for visits.
Well, they said that it's normal that you can't organize things properly, which was post. I couldn't organize properly. I had no short-term memory, but then the other things that were wrong before surgery were fixed. I felt so smart in there. I mean, I was like, I am a genius. I can do whatever I want.
You were on a high.
I had no pressure in my head. Like, I had perfect hearing, perfect vision. I could sign my name. When I had to check out of the hospital, I had to sign my name.
No loop.
Perfect. And I signed it pretty fast. So, yeah. A lot of that was better, but then there were the new reactions of like...
Right, different symptoms.
Yeah, and it's something that you can fix. You just have to spend the time doing it.
So you have to do some form of therapy, like instead of physical therapy, or is it
like brain therapy?
Exercises?
Like someone will tell you what to do to help your brain get better, which I didn't have because I thought I was super smart and didn't need it. And
she was back on track. You thought you could do it all
I
your
was
own.
back on track, and intelligent I was back on track, but I wasn't back on track. I needed
So you
that
didn't
help.
listen and go get
No,
the workshops that you
But I did need it, I think. And I couldn't read. I couldn't read either. I would read the sentence and several words were skipped, and then I would read it the second time and the other words were skipped.
Oh, that's weird.
So I could not, that was hard.
Yeah.
And I said, well, my only problem is with the reading, and do I need therapy for that? And she's like, well, we're just going to tell you to read. So I just started reading and got over that.
Practice.
So, yeah.
So you knew there was some left in your brain.
Yeah.
And then when we come, in a couple minutes, we're going to cut for commercial, but when we come back, I want to talk about, well then, knowing that, how often did you have to go back for testing, and how did they find out that now we have a more aggressive form of cancer, which is not news that anyone wants to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the post symptoms, was there anything else prior to them finding out that it's a news? Let's go there. Was there anything else prior to them finding out that now we've got stage 4 that triggered that?
No, I mean, I had to go in for testing, an MRI every 2 months, and I was having chemo every month because the oncologist had recommended just chemo, not radiation. I thought it was radiation, and that I think he was right for doing that.
Okay.
Because radiation can mess you up quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I've had radiation now, so I'll tell you about that as well.
Okay, great. We're going to go ahead and cut for commercial and be right back. Thanks for tuning in to Courageous Journeys.
I am a monster. I will never back down.
I am part of a tradition.
I got green in my veins! I'm ready to go!
I'm a monster!
This is our team.
This is our town!
This is our barn! This is our time.
I am relentless.
I will never get tired of the goal song.
I'm ready to go!
I will never quit.
I am a monster.
I am a monster!
I am a monster!
Watch Tim Thiessen live Wednesdays at 3 p.m. right here on CentralValleyTalk.com and on digital channel 33.2. If you missed the live broadcast, we're on every Wednesday night at 11 p.m. on Comcast channel 200 and digital channel 43.5. You don't want to miss this.
You're watching CentralValleyTalk.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Hi, and welcome back to Courageous Journeys. So we were just discussing the post-treatment symptoms and how often that you needed to go back to be scanned and have treatment, and you were just having
post-surgery. They'll do an MRI just to make sure everything's okay, and then you'll have an MRI every few months And then, my oncologist recommended just taking chemo, which I did for 12 sessions. But the problem is that my chemo is a pill, not intravenous. So when you take the pill, you don't lose your hair. Your hair might thin. Mine thinned, but you couldn't tell because I have thick hair. Although there's a little that I lost this time. But so every 5 weeks, you take 5 days of the pill. And, well, it's supposed to be 4 weeks. Mine turned out to be 5 because my blood platelet count was low.
They extended it.
Yeah. So I got a year's worth of free chemo because I was on a study that they do.
Oh.
So which was really good because chemo's expensive.
So we didn't even go over that. Did you have medical insurance?
I have medical insurance, which, thank the Lord Jesus, like, that took care of my surgery.
Yeah.
So I had to pay my deductible, and then I have to pay, like, a copay for chemo, so...
For the treatments.
I didn't need to pay it because I was on their study.
Right.
So
And that's why you did the extra things with the students, right?
Yeah.
So that gave the least free payment. Okay, so, and then as you're going back and doing scans, when then now are they saying?
Well, I went through the entire chemo and I was great, and then I stopped the chemo and she said, let's do a scan every 3 months now. So we started doing them every 3 months, and I was like, this is super cool, and I'm gonna just do my thing and wait for it. And 9 months out of chemo, so I stopped chemo, and then 9 months out, she was like, oh, well, there's a spot. And I was like, spot?
a new spot?
A new spot. And she was like, let's wait for 2 months, and I want to see you in 2 months instead of 3, and do another scan, and then I can tell you whether or not it's tumor. So in 2 months, it was there, and it was bigger. It went from the size of, like, just a very small little circle into a pencil eraser size.
In 2 months.
Yeah.
So we've got a much more aggressive.
So we knew we're with aggressive, and you know that if you treat a tumor, it can come back aggressive. If you do surgery on it, if you treat it with chemo or radiation, whatever you do, it's going to come back more aggressive.
That's what they tell you standard.
However, the surgeon and 2 oncologists told me, oh, these don't ever come back fast. This will come back, it'll be very slow, and he said, if it comes back fast, it'll be very rare.
Because it was only stage 2. That's why they told you that?
Well, yeah, and he'd seen them before, and they don't usually come back that fast. So I thought 3 doctors said it won't come back fast, so I was like all excited about my life.
Yeah.
And so it came back, and she said it's probably grade 3. So we'll need to check when we do the surgery. So she said you need to go through surgery all over again, and then radiation and chemo. So I was like, great. And my dad was like, geez, it's like you have to start all over again. So I went through the second surgery, which was 2.5 to 3 hours. So it wasn't as bad, and they don't wake you up in that. They just went in, suctioned it out, and my oncologist was like, when I saw her later, she was like, well, actually, it's a grade 4. And she was super shocked that it was grade 4. She was kind of upset, I could tell, because she said, like, you're such a smart person, and she knew that I wanted to, end up in medicine, like, because I was going to go back to school and do something with medicine. And she was disappointed.
Yeah.
And she said, you're going to have to get radiated, and you'll notice the difference. And you're supposed to get tired through radiation. You're supposed to get headaches. You're supposed to be, like, just all kinds of things. Someone said it can change your personality.
Yeah, so if anything, the blessing of it is that at least you're not suffering from those type of effects.
Yeah.
You're still such a cheery personality. And, no, you are. You're amazing. And, and you're still being able to enjoy some quality during working through fighting this.
Well, I went through the radiation for 6 weeks, and I had chemo every day of those 6 weeks, and I didn't have any symptoms. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm not having any symptoms. And he's like, you must be a really strong person, because he had never seen anyone of any
stage
age
4
not go through symptoms. And I did have a few headaches the week after it was done.
The surgery?
No, the radiation.
Oh.
But just 3 or 4 days I had headaches, and then that was it.
And you weren't having nausea and...
No, and when she did the scan again, she's like, your brain doesn't look swollen at all. And she's like, I'm kind of surprised. So I went through that super well, because usually you will not go through radiation like that.
So are you still taking treatment?
Well, yeah, now I have to go through my 12 sessions of chemo. So I had my first session last month, and I'll have another session.
11 more.
Yeah.
Well,
But it may last longer than that because it's
Right.
grade 4. So
And at this point, they are not giving you any kind of guarantees about anything.
well, no, I mean there's no guarantees. And grade 4, you're kind of on your path. I mean,
So,
I don't know.
as far as resources, you mentioned to me you've been looking all over for people that will actually try some alternative.
Yeah, my diet was pretty healthy before surgery, and then after surgery I started juicing things, so I had a lot, like, that was a lot healthier, and then it went grade 4, so now I'm like, well, maybe I should try some alternative medicine. So I went and saw a doctor about that, and he kind of told me he couldn't really help me, but then this other doctor could help, and I thought, well, what, you have to pay the other doctor? I could.
Did they accept insurance, or was it
Oh,
you had to
no,
pay
you
cash?
have to
I
pay
noticed that a
cash.
lot of, unfortunately, a lot
Yeah.
of alternative methodology or physicians, holistic, aren't able to
Yeah.
accept your regular.
Well, and then, I had looked at diets online, and some people are going raw foods, some people are doing ketogenic, some people are doing the paleo diet. So I thought, well, I don't know what I'm going
Right.
to end up doing, and I'll probably try, ketogenic, which the doctor actually doesn't recommend.
Is that what you're doing right now?
Well-
You told me you were doing some form of diet. Was that the category?
Yeah, I was going to try that, but the doctor thinks that if I eat fruit, it's better for me because it has a lot of antioxidants.
Well,
in
fruits
it.
have, I mean, especially apricots. There's a lot of fruits that really.
A lot of people will use
work towards-
apricot seeds as well, but that's not recommended. So, I've done all this research on all these different things, and most of them say if you have a 4th grade brain tumor, don't try it because it's worthless. So,
Yeah, but you
I
don't
mean, there's
wanna
only
just
one
give
way
up.
to find out.
Right.
So I have like a bunch of new vitamins that I'm taking that are, just good for your health. But one thing I will say is I think you should get regular treatment and do the diet. But it depends on what you have, because there was this one guy who had gastroenterological cancer. What you eat really matters with that type of cancer. So his was in his colon, and he changed his diet. He didn't want to do chemo, so he just changed his diet and he got rid of it.
Amazing.
But see, I can't do
Right,
that.
not with your brain. Well, and
Yeah.
yesterday we learned on Courageous Journeys that raw milk can also help fight cancer, which,
Yeah.
there's just so much positive information and critical information out there, but getting it to the public is really challenging. And then deciphering what works for you.
Yeah.
Because there isn't enough studies. That's why, they're constantly doing fundraising or whatever, and hopefully we can find a cure to cancer.
Yeah, and then there's, I was reading the book that you gave me, and they were talking about the growth hormone, and there's like other treatments listed in there as well that I haven't gotten to yet, but I've heard positive and negative about the growth hormone. So,
Right.
You're going to have to make your own decision and make sure it matches your body, and then never question what you do, because if I wouldn't have gotten the first surgery, my life would be miserable.
Yeah.
I wouldn't function like I function now.
You had so much
I
more.
would rather have gone through the first surgery than not have done it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Well, and that
Yeah.
fear factor prevents a lot of us from getting tested.
that's,
I'm speaking from my own.
Do not be afraid to trust your body. Pay attention to what's going on. If you're eating something and your stomach gets upset, it's probably a sign you shouldn't eat that thing. Or if you get an allergic reaction, don't eat that thing. Like, watch what's going on with your body and pay attention to what you're doing with it. That way, when something's off, you'll notice it, because you will know this is not normal for me. And I've thought about all my food, and I thought about everything I do, and it's not. And stress is a huge factor.
Yeah.
When you're stressed out, I kind of was not pleased that I was at the United Nations for that purpose, because it was super stressful.
Bet.
So
can't
yeah,
even
stress
imagine.
is huge.
Well, and then even I learned recently that our bodies, you mentioned, pay attention to the foods, how your body's reacting to them. Our bodies change apparently every 7 years. And with that comes now all of a sudden you can't eat certain foods without it bothering you. So listen to it. Stop eating those foods until that changes. It doesn't mean you can't try again to reincorporate them into your diet at some point. But how much time have we got left, Chuck? Because I don't want to lose track here. I'm always going over. I want to make sure there's
4 minutes.
if there's anything really important that you want to share with information.
I don't know.
or-
I mean, find a support group. Whether you find a therapist, a cancer sports group, like an
What do you
art
think?
group, I was super depressed when I was seeing chemo the first time. 6 months in, it was horrific. So I had asked to see a therapist, and they were rearranging my appointment and everything. So at some point I was like, I don't want to see the therapist anymore.
It took so long to get the appointment.
And so I ended up going to a Christian therapist who's not a therapist. She doesn't talk about your body. She talks to you about God. Yeah, so I went to her, and I thought, geez, this is so much better. I just needed to get it straightened out. But some outside activity you need to do.
Yeah, well, and I have a friend right now who's suffering also with cancer, and, you know, she's isolated in her home, and yeah, you need to get out.
I don't want to do that. At least have one thing that takes you out of the house and you can do, because you know when you're on chemo, I don't normally feel like this. Why do I feel depressed? And you can feel the chemicals moving around in your body. And you know my oncologist said, well, eat right and go to the gym. Well, I'm not going to the gym when I feel that depressed.
Oh no, I mean,
so I didn't want to do anything.
When you're depressed, you don't want to get up and get dressed and face the world, let alone go to the gym. And I know, I totally know how that feels. But
so look around, find the right treatment. Oh, and you have to be careful who you trust. You need second and third opinions from doctors. You're gonna find out who your friends really are. You're gonna find out who your family really is. And some people need to be kept at a distance.
Yeah. Learning to draw those lines in anything that you're dealing with in life, especially, when you will need to listen to yourself. A lot of times people brush it off, or they always have a negative response to some form of treatment that you feel is the right way for you. And you love them, but you have to say, this is what's important for me, and this is what I'm doing. Yeah. And that's challenging in anything that you're going through.
You'll learn a lot about yourself just from having cancer. So, you'll find out, and you're going to be all by yourself, because nobody understands what it feels like, nobody knows what you're going through, and nobody knows what any of
And we don't know how to act
either.
You don't want to, some people need more attention than others, and some, like, I'm kind of hard-headed. I don't want you to be, oh, I'm so sorry.
I don't want it either, but then at the end of the day,
but you need love and...
Yeah, but if you have to cry by yourself, that's not any better, because no one around you can handle it. You're like, well, I guess I'm just on my own here. So that's not right
It's
either.
good to have a friend to hug and talk to.
And if you know someone who's going through cancer, just be there for them. Just tell them, okay, what are we going to do? And let them tell you. Let them blurt it out.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Laura, for coming in.
Welcome.
And really appreciate that.
Thanks.
And good luck to everybody. If you're suffering from some of these, get it checked out and follow your intuition on what you think is right for you. Thanks again for tuning in.